Hello, and welcome to another episode of Leader Generation brought to you by Mata. I'm your host, Tessa Burg, and today I'm once again joined by our EVP of PR and Strategic Communications, Chris Harihar. Chris, thanks so much for joining us.
Of course, happy to be here.
So, this year has been packed with headlines, some exciting, but a lot are really, I would say, overwhelmingly nervous or driving a ton of anxiety for people thinking about the future of work, for companies wondering if the investments they've made in their technology and AI are going to pay off. And in strategic communications and brand and creative, we're concerned about, what is the impact of generative AI and where our brands show up, and is that reflective of our companies and our brands' values? And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm really excited to have you here. Not only do you lead strategic communications here, but a couple of our clients have deep expertise in this arena. Can you set the
Sure.
stage for us? Like, why is AI risk intelligence so important to talk about right now at the beginning of 2026?
Yeah, we're really excited about this capability that we're launching called AI Risk Intelligence, which is really focused on human-enabled and AI-supported audits of AI-created content, and in some cases, AI-manipulated content, where we can better understand, on behalf of brands, how they're being featured or presented in some of this content. Everyone is talking about AI slop and how there has been this explosion in low quality, uncanny valley-esque content online, both in walled gardens and the open web. And a lot of the focus has been on how do we prevent our ads and our marketing materials and campaigns from running alongside some of this content, because low quality generally means that that the content won't allow the campaign to perform. And if you look at the media verification space, players like Double Verify, who's a client of ours, do great work in this category to ensure that advertisers and marketers and brands don't have their content appearing alongside that type of slop, right? But there's also another danger and harm here that I think is less discussed, and that is, what if we're using this explosion in new tools that are really incredible, whether it's Higgsfield or Grok even, or ChatGPT or Gemini. What if these tools are actually used to create harmful content regarding brands, featuring logos, characters, executives? There's no shortage of ways in which this content can be harmful or threatening from a branding perspective. And so what we've done with the AI risk intelligence capability is using our expertise in online forensic research, using our expertise in PR and communications and understanding what could be a potential threat, using our understanding of marketing channels and media channels and where this content might live. We are working to help brands identify these brand damaging and brand threatening moments, and surface them so that they can understand how to reactively address them and proactively plan for them, because there's only going to be more of this moving forward. And so that's what we've really done with AI risk intelligence. And we're excited about the launch because I don't know that there is anything like this out there that sits within a independent agency like Monop, and specifically sits within the PR and communications group. I think you might see this with cybersecurity firms. Maybe it's sort of ad hoc work here or there. It's reactive, driven by brand need. If they're featured somewhere, find out and then have to call attention to it. Sometimes it sits more with like a legal function related to copyright. But at its core, this is a reputational issue. And so it should sit with PR and communications. And we're excited to work on more of these projects and help, enterprise brands do this work so that they can understand how they're being featured, and in some cases misrepresented.
Yeah, and I think when I talk to clients, sometimes this all feels like a little hocus pocus. They're like, well, there's a lot of
Sure.
stuff outside of my control. But it was interesting, there was a Alliance Risk Barometer ranked AI as the second greatest concern for companies worldwide. And just last year, it was ranked number 10, and now it's at number 2. And in
Sure.
the post that you wrote about this release, you mentioned the neutral input trap. And in it, it says, CMOs, that their logos are being treated like public domain. And how
Yeah.
do you have that conversation with CMOs that a part of that AI risk is sort of this treatment of LLMs? And how is AI risk intelligence more proactive than reactive? So two questions.
Yeah, for sure.
Making CMOs and brands aware of the very real risk and that neutral input trap. And then two, how are we getting ahead of it?
Yeah, no, great questions. And I think showing it helps to help make the case for why this is such a powerful, dangerous, and important topic, and an issue for the marketing space and for brands, just generally speaking. This actually stems from some work that we helped another client with called Copy Leaks, or an AI manipulation and detection and governance platform. And we worked with them on this research related to Sora, which is the generative AI video platform from OpenAI, where we actually were able to identify instances where uh, executives like Sam Altman or Mark Cuban were actually being deepfaked on the platform to say racial slurs, etc. Essentially, where they the bad actors were finding ways to game the prompt so that the prominent executives were saying things that weren't exactly the racial slur necessarily, but they found a way to make it sound phonetically like that. And this is a good example of bad actors will always be very creative in thinking through how to game prompts and get around safeguards and protections that are in place across these platforms. And we did that analysis. And what was fascinating was that in all the videos we saw, it was part of a broader meme where every one of the execs was wearing a Burger King crown. And so we have some of the most well-known executives in the world wearing a Burger King crown, shouting what it sounded like racial slurs. And
Mm.
so that was shocking to me because first of all, why would Burger King as an input be allowed alongside some of the other context that was inputted in the prompt? But then also, why is Burger King, in the unfortunate position to have the crown appear in any way, shape, or form on Sora with no, protections in place? It seemed like to ensure that the crown that they value is used in a way that's brand safe and appropriate for who they are and their values. And so that from that, we started thinking more about how this is problematic beyond that specific instance. And we saw so many other examples in researching this on Sora and other platforms where this is quite common, actually, where brands are being featured in inappropriate ways, ways that are entirely counter to who they are. And we think that there is an opportunity for brands to know this and reactively address it, but proactively prepare, because there's just going to be more of this moving forward as the tools get better. Because ultimately, protections don't move as quickly as innovation, unfortunately, and so every brand will be at some some deal of risk for this to occur.
Yeah. So every brand will be at some deal of risk, but are there some industries that you think should be prioritizing this or moving faster than others that are at more risk right now?
Yeah, certainly. I think consumer-facing brands that have well-known characters, well-known logos, they should be thinking about this. Whether you're, Disney, Burger King, McDonald's, anyone with a well-known logo is at risk for this to occur. We saw instances of that, for example, with Grok on X, and this is part of the analysis that we did in conjunction with the launch of AI, risk intelligence. But of course, everybody knows that about a month ago, Grok was the built-in AI platform on X was actually non-consensually undressing users on the platform, men and women. And we found in our research over 100 examples actually of Grok being asked to put people in branded bikinis. So McDonald's, for example, people were asking Grok to put women non-consensually in a Grok in a McDonald's bikini, or to put women undressed in a McDonald's, an actual venue, in an actual restaurant. And so it's to some degree, it's kind of shocking to me that an ad-supported platform, for example, like X, would allow this to occur. But I think it just goes to show that there's so many different scenarios and so many use cases that I think we don't generally think about, but bad actors are thinking about, that we have to prepare for. All of us have to prepare for. And I think brands need to know that this is occurring. They need to see examples of it when it does occur in the wild. We need to surface those for them so that they can understand how damaging they can be. And there also has to be that level of education and knowledge so that the platforms themselves can work to install better safeguards to ensure that brands are to some degree treated like people in terms of how you can use their likeness in these platforms and in these ways. And so I think that's part of the push here, where in driving education at the top of the funnel, hopefully that will create pressure that will move further down the funnel, where we'll see more safeguards put in place at the platform level.
That Grok scandal I thought was like completely nuts. And it
Yeah,
certainly shows that gap in prioritizing what they call creative freedom or spicy mode over protecting the reputation
yeah,
of the brands that advertise on their platform. Are you seeing brands rethink their mix of spending to ensure to as one of the ways that they're being proactive in safety? And
for sure.
in practice, like other than just looking at where your brand can surface, um, how are you moving from sort of those project-based assessments to like a full system?
Yeah,
And I don't know if this is possible, but like that you'd be able to detect that there's a likelihood of a Grok-like scandal situation going to occur somewhere else so that you can
sure.
proactively instruct our clients and our brands like, hey, here's some other spaces based on
Yeah.
this type of activity that we might want to start avoiding.
Of course, no, all great questions. On the spend side, X has already fallen victim to some suitability concerns in the past, which has led to a number of advertisers, it seems, to leave the platform entirely or cut back on spend. And I'm sure that the Grok issue, which continues to this day to some degree, but not at the extent that we saw in January, that will always give an advertiser pause, especially because on Grok there was also instances of CSAM where children, unfortunately, were being undressed in some of these images, and so that has become more of a regulatory nightmare for X, and in a way that no brand wants to be wrapped up in that, right? And so I do think that we're seeing pressure from brands where dollars are leaving these platforms when this does occur, but we're in this interesting moment where OpenAI, for example, is now set to feature advertising in platform. This week, they launched ads within ChatGPT Go. I think that's the test cohort for it. And I think that creates more pressure when you start taking advertiser dollars to support revenue. Then you have to make sure that brands are protected in these platforms so that they keep spending with you, but also just, in order to be a good industry partner, you want to make sure that the brands that you work with and don't work with feel like they can safely be featured in your platforms, whether it's ChatGPT or Sora. And we're seeing, and Sora is a good example where it doesn't feature advertising. I do think at some point it will, maybe even this year as a test. But we've already seen Disney come on as an investor and a partner with OpenAI, where they will do a lot of work in the Sora platform to feature characters from Disney. Now, I can go into Sora right now and show you 5 different channels that are wildly inappropriate that feature brands in horrible ways. I mean, and so as brands start to do more with these tools and these platforms, and we see more, of a relationship cultivated between brands and the Gen AI tools, then I think there's just going to be more of a need for solutions like what we're offering. At the same time, what we're offering is early stage. This is going to be human-led research, essentially with AI tools supporting it. But over time, the goal is to mechanize this so it can become more automated. Because the problem is only going to grow in scale, and so if it's growing in scale because the tools are getting better, and because bad actors are getting smarter, we need to figure out how to mechanize that and make it more automated, to the point where in real time the goal will be to help surface, or in near real time the goal will be to help surface and pinpoint when these instances occur. And then down the line, if there is an opportunity to be more predictive, and I think a predictive solution would have to be based off of platform type. The propensity for this to occur on a specific platform can vary, because different platforms have different protections and safeguards, but then also brand type, because if you're a B2B SaaS company, you're probably less at risk for this to occur than if you were McDonald's or Taco Bell, right? And so I do think that there will be an opportunity to create more of a predictive engine down the road. But right now we're just sort of scratching the surface and getting in at the ground level to try to help brands understand how much of a problem this is right now, while pointing to the future, because it's going to be even more of a problem 5 months from now.
Yeah, and I love that approach. I mean, it's very similar to how when we started building our internal tool for social media, Mod Heat, it starts with that pattern identification and getting the right kind of implicit feedback, like just monitoring behavior, engagement. And when you start to see the variances in that, and then put a circle around it and say, let's go a little bit deeper. What's triggering this? What do we need to understand better? Then that will solidly lead to better predictive models that will help us get ahead and warn clients that this might not be the best place for our placement. This might need other type of human intervention to remediate if a brand has been exposed in an inappropriate way. So I think this is a great start. And even with being human-led, just the fact that we're thinking about it now and collecting the data, we'll be able to get that predictive state in a pretty efficient manner and learn across industries. Because like you said, it is going to be different. But if we're tracking the highest risk first, that actually benefits everyone. So even if I'm B2B, like if we are picking up patterns for more B2C consumer facing brands, then we can assume that the guardrails within that platform are more lax than maybe we're comfortable with. And then all of our clients can benefit from that information.
100%. I would describe the moment we're in right now, it's early days and it's chaotic. And so working to just try to create a baseline, I think, is really important. On the early days side, for example, Sora has been out for not even a year, I feel like, at least the latest version that's incredibly high powered and very high quality. And trying to understand what the safeguards are for brands has been, a bit of a mess. When it launched, there were very lax safeguards. I think that was to drive users and make sure that people could understand the value of the technology. And then they pulled some, and then they installed more safeguards that were primarily around people and making sure that likenesses of celebrities, et cetera, were protected. But I haven't really seen the same rigor or thought put in regarding brands. And a good example of that would be in our testing that we've done, and we'll share this with the market, of course, but I think we tried roughly 20 different branded prompts on Sora that were putting brands in damaging, high risk situations, like Sam Altman, for example, drinking a Diet Coke and then fainting, or him applying Vaseline on his face and screaming, and it ranged to him being on a brand name airline and then the engine catching on fire with the logo behind it, right? We put all of these prompts in, and I mean, there are 20 of them. It's not a huge sample size, but I think virtually all of them were allowed, and the videos are really high quality. And they would be they're concerning on Sora for sure, though the viewership on Sora is fairly low, and active users on Sora, I believe, is fairly low to this point. But if you can download these videos and then bring them to other channels, that becomes even more problematic. That's what we saw with the CopyLeaks Burger King example that I cited earlier, where Sora, engagement was low, maybe a couple of likes for one of these videos. But on TikTok, there are dedicated channels specifically around videos like that, where they have hundreds of thousands of views and tens of thousands of likes and shares. And so I think like there's so much early stage stuff happening here where like we're all learning how bad actors are sort of like gaming the systems, what safeguards are in place, what's the user behavior after you make a video like this, like does it live on Sora, do you screen record it and then bring it to another platform? All of that we're kind of figuring out now, and I think it's important to raise all of these questions so that brands can have a partner like us to help them figure that out. We also want to go a step further, and when there is a moment where a brand is featured in a way that could be brand damaging or threatening, we want to flag it to the platforms. We want to help flag it to the platforms, possibly and potentially in coordination with legal teams that are supporting these brand partners that we might have, to make sure that the content is taken down and that there is more thought put into how the platforms can protect our brands, at the prompt level to some degree. And at the LLM level, I should say, because I think this should all be baked in a deeper way, and it doesn't appear that it is right now. And so we'll see ultimately how things go over the next several months. But I feel like if you're not putting pressure in at this early stage, it's going to be way harder to do it down the road, especially after so much potentially harmful content will have been created by that point.
Yeah, and I think your last point, reaching out to the platforms, is so important. Just this week, we had a workshop where for like 200 people in our company learned how to build their own agents. And as a part of that training, everyone learned how to put in their own guardrails. And
Mm-hmm.
so we know that the
Yeah.
platforms have the intelligence, they have the tools to do more to protect brands. And it reminds me of early days of Google. Like when AdWords first launched, they let anyone bid on stinking anything. And
Yeah.
there were some damaging messages that would show up if someone Googled your brand, and a competitor or just someone who is hosting a link farm with a terrible experience would show up. And they could have acted faster, but they didn't because they were making money off of what were at the time affiliate marketers. And
Mm-hmm.
we like brands need to recognize that their dollar does mean something. And if you are advertising on a platform that isn't hearing your concern about your brand and they do have the control to do more, then, you know, we can help coach you through what's the right next step to do. But
For sure.
I think one of the downsides of, what was happening in Google or how we had structured at the time at some of the companies I was working with, they were too dependent on Google.
Mm. Yeah.
And today, I think brands and companies that are in different position where we don't have to be too dependent on where we're getting our traffic from. There's more channels than ever. And AI not only allows you to personalize the timing of the message, the experience, how it gets delivered, but it allows you to reimagine the types of experiences and where your brand can come to life in both physical and digital ways. And that's something that brands should also lean into. Where are they going to have the most control, so
Mm-hmm.
that they can have that flexibility and not be too dependent on a few very large, very influential platforms. And even back in the day, those early days, Google AdWords, that was like the lesson I always took is, okay, I never want to be or have my clients be in a situation where because we can't run on AdWords, we're going to not meet our sales goals.
Sure. No, and what's funny is I think there are still issues when it comes to like brand suitability as it relates to keyword hijacking and all these different things that still occur. And that goes to show that you need to apply pressure early in order to affect change, and that is what we aim to do here. And what's fascinating is that I think a lot of people are very focused on the awesome potential of these tools, and there is incredible potential. We love these tools. I mean, these are great services, great platforms. At the same time, I do think that it is difficult to think of all the harmful ways in which somebody might do something and feature a brand or come up with a prompt, and it requires, clearly bad actors are always creative and always thinking ahead in terms of how they might be able to, come up with a prompt that lets them get the output that they want, regardless of how harmful it is. And you need a partner that, like a PR person, for example, that is literally tasked with thinking about harmful situations and scenarios so that we can help clients prepare in traditional PR. We're bringing that same thinking to prompt harm and prompt suitability, if you will, and AI suitability to think about how brands can be featured in these harmful ways, and then we'll find them for you. We won't create them, obviously. That's not what we do. And the test case I outlined before about Sora, we didn't publish those videos. We recorded them and then just left them in drafts, and they don't live anywhere. But we are thinking about the ways in which bad actors can go about creating this content and creatively thinking about it, because that's what is required in order to find it. And that's the type of thinking that we just want to bring to brands as they think about the value of these platforms. It's very high, but at the same time, whether you have a customer who had a bad service experience, or you just have people online who are trying to have fun with brand imagery, like there's so many different scenarios that can occur here that range from like low level to way more nefarious, and we just want to help identify those.
Yep. Well, I love it, Chris. You've always been ahead of the curve when it comes to leveraging AI to
I
help.
have a horribly my brain doesn't turn off when it comes to thinking about how bad things can happen for clients that we work with, and I think that's the type of sad but helpful thinking that we're trying to bring here with AI risk intelligence.
Yes. No, it's great. And this is a creative solution. It's one that's going to continue to grow and scale and unlock even more opportunities. So
For
thank
sure.
you for joining us today. Clients are now walking away with, what to think about, how to take those proactive next steps with their PR team,
Yeah,
and where they have the power, where they can have the influence and control to strike a balance in what feels right now like a very crazy world.
for sure. 100%.
If people want to find out more information or reach you, where can they find you?
Yeah, they can reach me at chris.harihar@modop.com, or you could find me on X at Chris Harihar. That's my handle. But we'll be publishing a blog post, or we've published research in relation to this launch that you'll be able to access and see. But we have a number of other things that we plan on sharing with the market soon that just highlight how much of an issue this is, unfortunately. And if you're a brand that has a well-known logo, that has well-known characters, you are at risk, and we're here to help.
Yeah, and I'll call out that if you visit modop.com and go to the Vanguardian, there are links to all of our podcast episodes. We've talked about AI slop. We've interviewed clients from CopyLeaks and Double Verify. So a lot of good information there. And then the research will be on the blog, which is the other link. And you can also learn more about digital twins, the CMO priorities for 2026, and overall future-proofing your marketing team for 2026. So check out modop.com, click on Vanguardian or /magazine. And until next time, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.